all too often when we're going through life, we tend to coast on autopilot. A lot of us don't necessarily take the time to dive deep and think about what's important to us or what brings meaning or value, or in the words of the word of my guest, tickles us. And so I'm really, really excited today to be talking with Duff McDonald, who is the author of this fabulous book, which I sucked down. It was so great, called Tickled, A Commonsense Guide to the Present Moment. I want to tell you just a little bit about him, and then we're just going to hop into the conversation. So Duff McDonald is the author of the New York Times bestseller, The Firm, The Story of McKinsey and Its Secret Influence on American Business, Last Man Standing, The Ascent of Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan Chase, and The Golden Passport. He's also the co-author of Frictionless and The CEO, a satire. He's written for Vanity Fair, New York Magazine, The New York Observer, Esquire, GQ, Wired, Airmail, and other publications. He lives in Ulster County, New York with his wife, Joey, 8 chickens and 3 cats. The Sheriff Stephen Wondrous, Corey Feldman, Esquire, and Princess Stephen Buscemi. That sounds really funny. He is also the co-host with Matt McButter of the podcast How to Tickle Yourself, a podcast I highly recommend, by the way, which you should check out after you're done reading this book. Duff, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's a thrill.
And, we were talking just before we hopped on, we were talking about all of the books that you referenced in this book. And so one of my habits is I tend to write down the books that the author references, thinking, well, if it was that important to write it down, I should possibly consider reading it. Although I have to say the Encyclopedia Britannica is maybe not so high on that list. But
you know what's really interesting is the previous book I wrote by myself was about Harvard Business School, and it had about 1,000 footnotes in it. And as anyone who's ever written either papers where you need to cite stuff or books, like footnoting is its own special hell, right? And one of the things I decided in Tickled was that I would make the Harry Potter novels the majority of the footnotes, because I realized while reading those with my daughter that J.K. Rowling basically, any issue you run into in life, she covers it in one of those 7 books. So if you look at the footnotes in Tickled, like 80% of them are Harry Potter. I thought it was really fun.
I did notice that. And, I think one of the things that I love also about that is, this book really encourages us to stop and think about what are the things that we love? What are the things that really resonate? What are the things that tickle you? And I discovered that there are so many things that in society we tend to be like, okay, been there, done that, what's next? Instead of being able to embrace or to dive into it. And so I loved that you were able to take this experience of reading these books with your daughter. And you talked about how that was a little bit of a challenge for you in the beginning. And then from there to turn it into like this very gentle lesson.
Well, I have a chapter in there too called The Trap of Time. And one of the things I realized during quarantine, which was when I wrote Tickled, was that we get so distracted by things that have already happened, right? And we sort of carry around a grudge or even a sense of pride or something about something that's already gone. Right. And we add to that expectations about things that haven't happened yet, could happen, may not happen. And the amount of our awareness that we dedicate to those 2 things, the past and the future, squanders that which we should be dedicating to the present, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, and and I'm not the first and I won't be the last to say this, now is all there is. It is never not now. And we do ourselves a disservice by distracting ourselves thinking about times that aren't now. And it was during quarantine that hit me. with all the quiet and the lack of distraction and the lack of movement, I suddenly sort of snapped out of what I'd call a trance, and realized, oh my gosh, I have everything I need right here, right now. And everything, there was stuff going on, right? I don't want to discount COVID, but, for people who don't have COVID and who are safe and who are at home, I was here with my wife. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We can focus on each other, on what's happening to us on the day to day, and not distract ourselves with, the past or the future. And so a lot of the book sort of came out of my realization that the only thing that we and by that I mean me, people can take their own conclusions from it.
Sure.
The only thing we need to pay attention to is what's happening to us right now. Everything else will take care of itself.
Well, and I love how in the book, you come back to this several times, the idea that we work so hard to try to quantify things and to try to wrap them in something else to give them meaning or to help make ourselves feel better in some way about what we're doing, really leaving aside the fact that, as the saying goes, it is what it is.
Yeah, so I was a business writer and journalist for my entire career until this book. So I basically counted everything. And I even say in Tickled that as a business journalist, I said on more than one occasion, show me the numbers. If you have the numbers, you have the story. Right. But I suddenly realized, again, during quarantine, I was like, numbers can't grasp essence. This just sort of hit me out of nowhere. What do I mean by that? If I say to you, oh, look at that beautiful tree. Isn't it great? Tell me about it. You could tell me how many leaves are on it, right? You could count them. You're not going to. You could tell me how old it is, but that's still not going to capture the beauty that you're looking at right now. You could tell me how many other trees are, but it won't get at essence. And the same thing goes with humans, right? We try to count ourselves. How old are you? Right. And, recently they came up with chronological age versus whatever the other age is, for how you feel or your health. We count our weight to try to get at our health. We count our bank account to try to get at our sense of success. And I suddenly realized that I've been doing this my whole career. And when you count something, right, a count on its own is kind of worthless, right? So if you say, well, how much money does he have? And if the answer is, $10,000, it immediately begs the question, is that more than other people? Is it more or less than he thought? So numbers beg to be compared to find meaning, right? So take your weight. I weigh this much. It immediately says, is that more or less than you want to weigh? And
what's your value compared to what the expectation is?
Yeah, so we compare things. So as soon as we have a count, we compare it. What's my bank account? What is your bank account? How much do I weigh? How much did I used to weigh? And so what we do when we start comparing numbers is, again, we take our eye off of the thing itself, right? And I suddenly realized it's like, if you're if you're looking at a quantification of something, right? How much money do I have? And then you say, well, what's that compared to the average? You're suddenly trying to find meaning by comparing you or something to something else. And one of the things that hit me in quarantine is I was like, oh my gosh, we're all miracles. Every single one of us is a living, breathing miracle. There is nothing that compares to the miracle of existence, right? And this goes back to the tickle part, right? If you sit and think about it, you don't even have to go that deep and say, wait a second, isn't this amazing that this is even happening right now, that we're talking, that I even exist? And then what we have done, because it's easy to count things, is we've started comparing miracles, right? Which ultimately is a pointless endeavor. What you want to do, or what I realized I want to do, is appreciate the miracle as it's happening and stop distracting myself by thinking things like, oh, my miracle would be a whole lot better if I had a few more dollars, or, oh, my miracle would be a whole lot better if there weren't, if the temperature outside was a little higher today. Because we count so many things, we immediately compare, and it leads us to think that our miracle isn't good enough. And suddenly, in early 2020, I was like, I have been thinking about this all wrong my whole life. And the burden that lifted, as that was happening, it's hard to describe, right? This sense that there's something that I have to do, that I haven't done yet, that I should have done, that you should have done for me, or I should have done for you. All these things, as they all sort of vaporized at once, and it was like, oh, everything that's real is happening right now, and it's great. It's amazing that I exist. Let's try and enjoy this. And the past 3 years have been the best of my life, because I haven't, for a variety of reasons, but one of the main ones is I haven't been judging myself anymore.
And that's wonderful. I think you're right. We do tend to get stuck in that because it's sort of a societal construct, and we just sort of go with it. So I'd love if we could take a half a step back and have you explain exactly what being tickled is.
Sure. Okay, so during quarantine, when it got quiet, right, I suddenly said to my wife on a couple of occasions, I said, this is the best hamburger we've ever made. This is the best salad I've ever eaten. This is the best book I've ever read. And I started noticing that I was saying, this is the best something, day after day after day. And when I caught myself, I thought, what's going on here? Do I have no standards anymore? Have I suddenly just decided that everything is record breaking? And then I realized, I was like, no, what's happening is I'm enjoying these things in the moment. And I realized, I was like, oh, so, there's all sorts of taxonomies people can use to talk about how we grasp reality, right? But the one that sort of emerged for me, I was like, okay, you can only truly appreciate your existence in the now, right? You can't remember the miracle. It's only now. And one thing that only happens in the present moment is tickles. And I came up with 4. I said, feed your body, feed your mind, play with your body, play with your mind. And the point I was trying to make was, if you do focus on those 4 things, they all have a tickle somewhere in them. Feed your body, food, right? Food tickles your tongue. So does kombucha, the greatest drink known to man. Feed your mind is learning. And we all know the feeling when you hear something that you didn't know before, and that makes sense to you, and you're like, oh yeah, that tickles your brain. That's what that feels like, right? When you learn something new that makes sense to you. Play with your body is, move up to and including sex, right? So the tickle of the physical tickle of existence. And play with your mind is create. So when we, and this isn't just for people who call themselves creatives, like we all create things every day, when you have a new idea, when you're like, oh, we should do this, and everyone's like, yeah, that's a great idea, that's come out of nowhere, right? So when you help bring something into existence that wasn't there before, it feels good. So my point that I try to make was try to focus on the things that tickle you. And these are things that bring you joy, because doing so will allow you to focus on the present moment. When do we get distracted? When we talk about stuff that irritates us, right? Or when we talk about something that's happening somewhere else, right? And we get distracted out of our present moment. But if you focus on the things that bring you joy and focus on doing those, you can feel those tickles. None of those things are, those aren't controversial ideas. We've all experienced them. And
it's not limited to just a few people either. Like everybody can experience.
Everybody. There's something that everybody likes to, you may have different food tastes than I do, but there's a food that you love, right? Yeah. And there is a kind of thing that you like doing. There's a kind of movement that you enjoy doing. There's a kind of learning that you appreciate. And the point I made was that if you focus on these things, underneath those 4 tickles is the tickle of existence itself. And I tried to get at that point by talking about something I read somewhere where someone said, why do we not commit suicide? Most of us, some people do, but why do the majority of us not commit suicide when things aren't going well, right? If you're having a bad streak of some sort, even if everything seems horrible. The reason that you don't is that there is an inherent beautiful feeling about existing, right? There's something that stops us from saying, I'm going to end this now, even though blah, 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 blah. So that's the thing that makes you want to continue to exist, to continue to experience the miracle. And it sort of sits underneath all of your particular joys that are different than mine. So the point about tickling was focus on that feeling, right? What makes you happy to be alive? When it comes across your field of awareness, hang on to it. And, with practice and with grace, we end up experiencing the glory of our own existence. And I went from being a sort of vaguely spiritual person. We don't need to go into what I used to think, but it was sort of like, sure, there's some kind of energy out there. I don't know, but there's no, and to suddenly being like, oh my gosh, no, this whole thing's a miracle. And the more that we can focus on that, the more you realize, look around you, right? I'm looking out at the forest. It's a miracle. How does that thing know how to do what it's doing, right? How do trees grow? But basically focus on the tickles, grab hold of the tickle of your own existence, and you'll realize that everything's okay, right? All you need to do is focus on what's happening to you right now, and the future will take care of itself. The past is gone, right? There's no need to dwell on it. You can learn from things successes or mistakes, but the only thing that actually requires your focus is what's happening to you right now. And the more that you remind yourself of the joyous things about your existence, the easier it is to focus on what's happening to you.
And that's such a good point. And I think, one that for a lot of us is a little challenging to wrap our brains around. Like I said, because we've been so caught up in this counting mentality. I love what you just said, grab hold of the tickle of your own existence. I think so many of us are so busy focusing outward that we're not really spending enough time and attention really tapping into what does tickle me, what is something that really grabs me that way. So that's kind of cool.
Well, another thing I realized during quarantine is, when we measure things and we judge things, and we're always saying, I did this, I deserve credit for that, you did this, you deserve blame for that. What we're trying to do is explain to ourselves why things happened, right? And for most of us, we see where we deserve credit and we see where others deserve blame. And if someone's pointing the finger of blame at you, you will say something to the extent of, well, of course, you must be aware of these mitigating factors that were outside of my control. I'm not the only one to blame here. So we can see that causation is, we see it crystal clear when we want credit. We say the cause behind things is a little murkier when they're trying to blame us, right? And I realized it's like, oh, the more that we count things, the more it leads us to think that we have certainty, right, about why this or that happened. And as a guy who is very, like, my facility with numbers is just fine. I haven't gone anti-numbers because I can't count or add. I spent my whole career on them. I suddenly realized that counting gives the illusion of certainty. It makes us think we know why or what happened, when if you pay a little more attention to all the details around you, you'll realize that everything is connected, right? Things happen because of all the things that led them to happen, which is a very long list, not because of the one or two things that you can count that make you feel good about yourself, right? So what's happened is we've gotten seduced by the ease of counting and by the lure of certainty that counting provides. And in the process have lost some of our capacity for appreciating the complexity and the sort of miraculousness of the fact that reality,
is a miracle.
is a miracle, right? Things even in a crazy time like COVID, that our existence didn't break. Some people did pass, and that's personal tragedies for sure. But like, reality doesn't break; it holds itself together, and it's a lot more complicated than we'd like to think. It's a lot more complicated than simply counting something. And if we stop counting, and this is what I started doing in quarantine, if you stop counting, you start seeing the beauty more. Because, but go back to the tree. When you want to appreciate the beauty of a tree, you do not count it. When you want to appreciate the beauty of an ocean, right? You do not count the waves. We never, like, beauty can't be counted. Love can't be counted. All the great things about life can't be counted. And we all know that, but yet we keep counting. So that means we're counting the not greatest things about our own existence. And so we're distracting ourselves away from the glory of it all by focusing on the things that can be quantified. And it's compromising our capacity for joy.
And I love that, some of the examples that you gave, for example, talking about the tree and the ocean or a good book or whatever, those are, if we really let ourselves go and stop counting, they're immersive experiences. And I think we are so used to holding back and stepping back that we neglect to really embrace and immerse ourselves into these things that truly can tickle our brain, our body, help us, make us feel above and beyond the way we do when we sit there very mechanically counting or assigning.
And you know what? You're exactly right, but I would put it a little differently. I'd say life is an immersive experience, right? What's happening is it's not that we're missing the immersive experiences that come along. It's that the whole thing is, and we're pulling ourselves out of it all day, right? And here's a great example. I called it, and I don't want to be a downer, but it's a great example. The counting of COVID, right? For those of us who lost people, it's the loss of a loved one is as bad as it gets, right? Let's not discount that. For those of us who didn't, right, and who are okay now, it is difficult to even grasp how many numbers about COVID we all consumed over 3 years. Every day, you read some count or another, right? How many died, how many tested, how many ratioed, how many vaccines, and all of it is like, there are people for whom those numbers really mattered, right? If you're working in a hospital, if you're making vaccines, if you're doing this or that. But for you or me, those numbers were a distraction from our lives. You needed to do the things that you needed to do, right? And I'm not here to tell people how to make up their own minds about stuff, but like, you needed to make choices for yourself, right? And then carry on. And yet what we did was we sat and were entranced by these counts. But setting that aside, the stock market, the economy, the election, this poll, that poll, the weather, the rain compared to last year, we every single day think of how many numbers each of us consumes without even really being conscious of it. And back to how we started here, if you're counting something, you're not grasping its essence, because numbers cannot do so. So if you are transfixed by some quantification of some scenario, you're not touching essence. You're not able to at all. And it's what we want to do. We want to sort of get to the essence of our own lives.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. So I'm going to shift the conversation to something that is tickleable. You and I are both friends of Hannah, the Kombucha Mama, and you mentioned that kombucha is the greatest beverage ever. And so I would love to know, why does kombucha tickle you so much?
Okay, so I used to drink too much alcohol. I'm not alone in that. I had to stop drinking alcohol because it was not good for me. And so in the years since then, have been in search of the replacement, right? And one of the things that people who can drink responsibly, that's really great about alcohol, is the wide variety, right? All the different tastes and all the different stuff. So if you don't drink, you're in search, and cranberry and soda can only take a man so far in life before you're pulling your hair out. So I stumbled on kombucha in 2017 or 18. A friend from California brought some back from Whole Foods. And so there's a couple things. Number one is, it's difficult for me to think of, maybe outside of wine, but it's not even the same thing. There is no comparable drink that has a comparable variety, right? It can be almost any flavor you want within reason. In Hannah's book, The Big Book of Kombucha, she's got several hundred recipes in there. Number two, it's got effervescence, which makes it an entertaining drink, right? It's not flat. It's no sugar, or relatively low sugar. So compared to juice or soda, it's healthy. And it's also a living drink. So it has the probiotic effects that Hannah can tell you about. But essentially you have a drink. So, but equally importantly, I started making it. So when you make kombucha, you're overseeing the process, right? Your little food laboratory in your house. But at the same time, you're spending time saying, what flavor are we going to make this week? My wife and I just bottled 10 gallons in the last 3 days.
Wow.
And we use these, I think they're 1 liter bottles. Like we use these ones,
Oh,
and
okay.
and um, there were probably, okay, so that's 36 bottles that every cycle we do, and we
Yeah.
don't make it the same flavor. So you get to decide what flavors are going to be. Now, my wife she is an excellent cook and a great gardener. She grows a lot of our food, so a lot of our flavor choices come from our own garden.
Nice.
And so there's that added dimension. I finally got involved, at least peripherally in the garden once we were flavoring the kombucha, and I was asking for elderberry or mint or raspberries or lavender. We made a Christmas one that was lavender clove. It was delicious. So in addition to having oversight of Hannah calls a SCOBY half pet, half plant, because it's alive, but it just sort of sits there.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, you got to take care of it.
Take care of it. Yes.
Right? Because if you
Love and
don't,
attention. Yeah.
yeah. So you have an engagement in a hobby that goes beyond that you like throwing darts or something, right? So because you're engaging with a thing that's alive. So there's that. There is the flavor choice, and then there is the final, the coup de grace, which is the best part for sure, is you get to share it with your friends. So we bottle 36 bottles every cycle. We give them all away, or sorry, I drink most of them, but I give a bunch away. And the act of sharing something that I made with my friends that is delicious and healthy, there's no hobby I've ever had that has felt so good. But I talk about it in the book. The chapter is called Infinite Kombucha.
Yeah.
And the tickle there it's kind of like, so when we were talking about the miracle of existence, right? If you focus on the amazing things about your life, you realize that you don't really have constraints other than like you can't fly. In any given moment, you can kind of do whatever you want to do within, constraints of, location, age, whatever. But, setting aside the things that constrain us, you can do a lot. You could do whatever you really want to do in the next moment. And I compared kombucha to that. It was like, oh my gosh, we can make this whatever we want to make it. And
then every single batch you taste is the best.
Oh my God. I said my daughter who's 14, when we talked to her last night on Zoom, I'm like, oh my God, we just made a batch of ginger mint. It's good. It's gotta be, she goes, the best you've ever made. And it always feels that way. There is variability, right? So it's not even some of them aren't the best, but it's all over the place. And the sort of thrill of being able to insert into my own life this sort of infinite choice thing that is always there. And it's like, if I want to get excited about something, I just start thinking about the kombucha, because it's like, what's not exciting about, well, what do we want to do this time? And we do flavor combinations. Hannah's book has got it's endless. But we do a lot of mint, because I love mint. But it's like, it's this thing that's sitting in my living room that makes me happy just to look at it. And so yeah, kombucha is one of my main tickles.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Duff, this has just been an amazing conversation. I have to say that I have changed since I've read the book.
Wow.
I have I have really made a concerted effort to pay more attention to those things that tickle me. And I also started listening to the podcast. Great job there. And, I really think that we need more of this in the world. So I'm just delighted that you came on to talk with me about this. Aside from reading the book or listening to the podcast, if someone wanted to learn more about you or connect with you in some way, is there a way for them to do that?
Sure. I got a website called the duffproject.com, which has my journalism. If anyone feels inclined to read the old stuff, it's got the books, it's got the podcast, and that's where you'll find most of it. But the podcast is all about finding that tickle, finding people who are trying to find that tickle. For anyone listening here, we're going to have Mira on how to tickle yourself in short order. So you can, if you want to hear this conversation again, but backwards, we'll do it there. But the website is the main place to go if you want to learn more.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your amazing information journey, wisdom. It's just been really delightful. And folks, I will put all of the links down below. So be sure to check out the book, check out the website, the podcast, and also make sure, as always, click like and subscribe. We love that. And take care of yourself till next time. Bye now.